Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'll be your producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. And today, once again, it's our very special NFL Week 14 now. Top 5 games of the week. We have a great slate of games here across both the NFC and the AFC. And I can't break these games down by myself. I have to bring on a very, very talented duo to help me out. But before I introduce them, guys, if you enjoy this episode, please like, follow, share, and subscribe. Facebook and YouTube, our main 2 social media platforms. We go live there each and every single week. Tons of great sports content, great football content, game previews, talking about teams as well, a lot of draft content, and so much more. So go over there, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And also go download our podcast, thanks to the Believe Podcast Network. You can hear on Apple Music, Spotify, or any of your desired streaming platforms. We have shows over there each and every week as well. Well, our first guest here today, the founder of 100 Yards Football, helping us break down these games, of course, the one, the only, Vincent Turner. Vincent, how are you doing, my friend? So you don't need to say a word. That's how good he's doing. And, of course, the 12-year NFL veteran by way of Colorado State, Mr. Harper LeBel. Harper, pleasure to have you back on the program. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. It's 11 years total, but that's okay. I don't want to take credit, though, for what I can't do. Vincent, were you doing the stomp there? You doing the chomp there from Florida? What was up with that? That was –
come on. I love what Billy Napier did, man.
I got you. Okay.
And we was talking about him being fired at least 6 or 7 times this year. And then when Florida turned around and gave him that contract, and then everybody went and lost their mind. But look what he done at the end of the year. He beat LSU. He beat Ole Miss. Go Gators.
Well, the Gators obviously trying to rebound from a couple of early losses. Them, Florida State, and Miami. Miami with the loss last week. So the state of Florida is in mourning, but hopefully Jacksonville and the Dolphins and Tampa Bay. We'll talk a little bit about the Buccaneers in just a moment. But before we do, let's get into Week 14 action. It's going to start tomorrow night in Detroit. Guys, I'm looking forward to watching this. Green Bay and Detroit are taking on each other in this game at Ford Field. It's of interest to me because the division, even if you take out Chicago, you got 3 teams that are right next to each other. And you would think that being 11-1 would separate you from the rest of the pack. Not in the NFC North. You got the 10-2 Vikings and the 9-3 Green Bay Packers breathing down your neck. Logan, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts here going into this Thursday night game? It's on Prime. It's going to be at 8:20. 8:15 really is when it starts. But for me, this is the game of the week.
Yeah, and, there was a stigma around the league for many years saying, the Thursday night games are they're throwaway games. It's games where teams can try out brand new uniforms, so on and so forth. I think those days are over when you look at this matchup here between Detroit and Green Bay. Like you said, Harper, both these teams are trying to vie for that top spot in the NFC North. Both have had really good years. I'll start off with Green Bay. Jordan Love, 2,500 yards through the air, 20 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and has been sacked 10 times on the season. And let's not forget about Josh Jacobs, the guy behind him, their free agent or their pickup this past year by way of Las Vegas. We'll talk about them in a moment. He's still good for them this year as well, 4.5 yards per carry. He's got 987 yards and also 8 rushing touchdowns for him, so he's been really good as well. And the receiving core for Green Bay, which a lot of people have talked about over the years, as do they have a true number one, or is it just kind of a group of guys that just kind of show up every Sunday and get it done? Well, hey, it don't matter if there's a true number one, if there's 2 number ones, it don't matter because they are getting the job done by way of Jaden Reed, Romeo Dove, Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson. That is a scary combo that Jordan is still getting chemistry with, and that they're getting better. They're growing together. You can see the chemistry gets better and better each and every single week. And Green Bay, they've had a really good year. Like I said, 9-3, so they are a talented squad, and this would be a big win for them this upcoming week against Detroit. So when you look at the Lions, like I said, maybe one of the best stories in sports the last couple of years, the way Dan Campbell has resuscitated this team and taken them to heights they have never seen in a very long time. So Detroit, obviously we know Jared Goff, a guy who a lot of people have picked to be in conversations for the MVP award. He's done really well. He'll have over 3,000 yards in the air after this ball game. He's got 22 touchdowns, 9 picks on the year, and 22 sacks. So he's getting it done. And we know he had the one really rough game a couple of weeks ago. But I think that, he can put that one behind him and do really well against this divisional opponent. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. When Montgomery went over to Detroit, everyone was saying, oh, man, I don't know how this is going to work. These are two really kind of ball-dominant running backs in terms of who's going to get heavier, in terms of who's going to get more carries, but they have made it work. They're very even. Gibbs has 163 carries. Montgomery has 166. All in total, they have a lot of yards between them. They have 21 combined touchdowns, so they are getting it done, and Detroit has really done a good job. Of course, their receiving core, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams behind him, those two really good, talented players there. And their defense. I mean, credit to their defense. I say it every week, but you lost your main guy, your top star, and Aiden Hutchinson weeks ago now at this point, but they have still been able to hang on. They've still been able to get through some tough games and get some wins, and that's why they're 11-1. They're currently tops in the North right now, but I think it's going to be a slugfest, guys. I'm looking forward to this one. I know Green Bay is going to want to give it their all to try and gain a little bit more traction and get closer and closer to first place. And if you're Detroit, you just got to try and keep beating off these guys who are trying to get at your ankles and kick them down. And, you might want to bite their kneecaps off like Dan Campbell says.
Boy. Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. This was for my uncle back home in the 901, Opie Turner, who lived in Detroit. Well, I used to visit him in the 70s. And he took me to a game in 67. Mel Farr, Charlie Sanders, Milt Plum, Alex Karras, and a young man from Jackson State who ended up being a Hall of Famer, Lynn Barney. And they was playing the Green Bay Packers that day. Bart Starr, Donnie Anderson, Texas Tech, Guns Up, Willie Davis, Dave Robertson. And look at these two teams here. It's back vintage. It's back history. Detroit, Motown. You got to be very impressed with Dan Campbell. As you mentioned, Logan, a couple years ago when he said that great quote, we're going to bite your kneecaps off. Everybody across the country, he's a fool. He's an idiot. He's a buffoon. But I remember what he said when the Detroit Lions was featured on Hard Knocks. And he was talking to the team. Trust me, man. We're going to turn this thing around and we're going to be a championship team. Kudos to GM Brad Holmes, who came over from the Rams. And look what they've done in 2 years. They've built that football team. And as you said, Hop, they did it on the offensive and defensive lines. This is a very good Super Bowl quality team. And they're going to be wanting to make a statement on Thursday night against the Green Bay Packers. Now, my man, Matt LaFleur, I give you credit, man. You drafted a quarterback at the time when you had another quarterback that was giving you problems. And you were so happy he left town. Look where he's at on Broadway. Nowhere to be found. But you believed in Jordan Love, who's now became one of the best quality quarterbacks in the league. And think about what the Packers have done, what I love about the Packers and Matt LaFleur. He knew the team had to get better. He goes out and gets Josh Jacobs from the Raiders. Then he gets Xavier McKinley, a Roswell, Georgia guy who went to the University of Alabama. And now you got a 9-3 football team. I'm looking forward to the game on Thursday night. As Mr. Harper LeBel said, this is the game of the week. To you, Harper.
You know, it's interesting. You bring up those old days back in the 60s where every team in this division ended up playing on a baseball field and they shared the same sideline, whether it be in Chicago, Minnesota, at Bloomington Stadium that they had there. And then you had, obviously, the Green Bay Packers when they played in Milwaukee. That was a baseball first stadium. They'd play at least once a year there. And then in Detroit and Tiger Stadium, they had both teams on the same sideline. Washington had that for a little while, and then New York with the Yankees. And finally, when Shea Stadium came in and the Jets ended up playing there, they were on separate sides. But very unique times in old NFL. I just see dirty uniforms, gray mud field, just fantastic. Now it's a little bit different, but the good old days with Vincent there. There are some issues going on in Detroit. Yes, they're 11-1. Yes, they're top 5 in every category, whether it be throwing, rushing, scoring, or giving up. They're top 5 in everything. Green Bay is top 10, so it'll be close, but the advantage goes to the Lions. But here's the one thing, the injuries. You mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. He was out at week 5. He had 7.5 sacks. Well, here we are going into week 14, and guess who's still the leader with 7.5 sacks? They've had so many players that were injured. 14 Detroit Lions are on injured reserve, and 4 are questionable for this week's game. So he's beating up kneecaps and biting them off, but he's also got some players that are wounded, and it's going to be an interesting scenario to see how Detroit stays healthy enough to not only win the division, but get that first round bye, rest up enough to where they can play in week 2 in the divisional championship. Detroit is beat up, but they are very, very good at what they do. Jared Goff has 22 touchdowns, 2,900 yards passing. He's leading the league in so many different areas because he's getting the ball to his main playmakers and he's distributing it. Everyone in Detroit has an equal share in that. So it'll be very interesting how this one turns up. Green Bay's defense has to show up. They've got 32 sacks on the year, 11 by Xavier McKinney. So let's give credit where it's due. He's a very good football player. They have 7 interceptions going into this game. They're going to need at least 1 in order to slow down the Lions. Second game we're going to look at this week. It takes place on Sunday. It's a 1:00 game. It's on CBS, where the Las Vegas Raiders end up going to Florida, who we were talking about at the beginning of the show, and they'll be taking on the 6-6. By the way, they're tied for the lead in the division in the NFC South. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Vincent, let's start with you.
I'm going to start with the Raiders. Before the season, I have some friends locally that bleed the silver and black. And they kept telling me when they got Gardner Minshew, they was going to be a playoff team. I said, hold up. That's not going to happen. So what I see the owner, Mark Davis, I see Mark Davis thinking, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, will they be in Vegas next year? Antonio Pierce, I don't know where you at right now, man. But I know this. With Tom Brady having 30% of ownership, I don't think he's going to be back next season. But one bright note for the Las Vegas Raiders, Brock Bowers is proving to y'all that he's going to be in the same, conversation of a great Dave Casper, a great Shannon Sharpe, a great Rob Gronkowski, a great Keith Jackson, a great Kellen Winslow. That young man is a special talent out of the state of California. And he plays tight end like our gentleman here, Mr. Harper LeBel. Now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I love the story. If I had to give MVP votes for the season, I would have Baker Mayfield at the top. Boomer Sooner Magic. What he's doing with that Tampa Bay team offensively, think about this. He lost one of the best receivers in the game, Chris Golden, on Monday Night Football. Mike Evans has been in and out of the lineup, and he's been able to wheel that team to 6-6. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we was talking about Tampa Bay. The season was over with, but he's taking Jalen McMillan, a rookie out of the University of Washington, a former Boomer Sooner teammate, Sterling Shepard, and that team is 6-6. And he saved Todd Bowles' job too, because I'm not really impressed with Todd Bowles being the head coach. But Baker Mayfield, if I had to give MVP votes, he'd be at the top of my list. The Sooner man, Boomer Sooner. To you, Logan.
Yeah, when I look at these two teams, I think Vegas might be in Tampa doing a little bit of vacation house hunting because their season's over. They're 2-10. They're waiting for the draft, and like you said, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm a betting man, I'm betting they will go with a quarterback because the Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell experiment, it hasn't worked. Minshew snapped his collarbone. Best wishes to him in his recovery. But O'Connell, we saw last year, had some bright flashes, but hasn't really shown to be the guy as a quarterback in the NFL. And we see now you have to have, a really good arm. Really, you have to be mobile too a little bit. He's just not been the answer that Vegas is looking for. But what really strikes me about this team is their running game. They are dead last in the league in terms of rushing yards at 937. They don't even have 1,000 yards on the season. We're 14. We're now in the week 14. So offensively, it's just a struggle aside from, like Vincent said, Mr. Brock Bowers. So if it wasn't for him, I don't know where this offense would be at. It would be pretty lowly, though. I can tell you that much. Defensively, it's been pretty much just Max Crosby, who's been a star over there for a couple of years. And we know they signed Christian Wilkinson to that big contract. He's been hurt for a while now. It's been a rough year for Vegas. 2-10, losers of 8 in a row. So they almost beat Kansas City last week, but KC got the magic and they got the win. So that was for the Vegas fans out there, not a happy Thanksgiving note after that one. But talking about Tampa Bay, Vincent, as you said, look, I mean, this is a team a couple weeks ago we thought, all right, last year, they had some good moments. This year, they'll come back down to earth, not really impressive a whole lot. But also, too, once you saw that guys started getting hurt, like Mike Evans, like Chris Godwin, you said, okay, they'll nosedive now, right? They'll go down in the NFC South, and this is Atlanta's for the taking. Baker Mayfield said, not so fast. We're not doing that right now. He's done really well with this team. He's got over 3,000 yards in the air, 25 touchdowns, only 11 picks. Has been sacked 28 times, though. So if Vegas does want to get this win, get to the quarterback, get to Baker. We know Baker will scramble a little bit, but if you can contain him and contain that cannon of an arm he's got, you have a shot at winning. But what really has been impressing me with Tampa Bay over the last couple of weeks is the emergence of Bucky Irving by way of Oregon. We just talked about them in our college football show. We talked about how Dan Lanning has developed quarterbacks. Well, Bucky Irving was a running back at Oregon, and now we see him transition into the league, and he's done really well with Tampa. 732 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns on the year. Only averages 61 yards per game, but we see week in, week out, he's getting better. He's getting more comfortable. He's finding better holes to go through, and that is just another weapon that the Tampa Bay coaching staff, that Baker Mayfield has been able to exploit in absence of those 2 really talented receivers that you mentioned, Vincent. So Tampa right now, they're looking good. They're building some momentum. And if you're a Falcons fan, I'm going to look in the rearview mirror because they are right there neck and neck with you. So I think Tampa will take this one single-handedly.
Tampa has 5 games remaining, this one against Vegas. Then they go to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers, and that will be the end of their AFC opponents for the year. They go to Dallas, then they have the Saints and Carolina. So I believe that they would think if we go 3-1, maybe 4-1 in that 5-game, we can win the division. At least that's the way I would be thinking if I were Todd Bowles. Defense wins championship, guys. And when you've had Gruden or Tony Dungy down there in Tampa, you know that they've got a very, very stingy defense. Not quite so this year. They're 25th in the league at giving up 24 points a ball game. Everywhere else offensively, they're fantastic. They're number 6 in the league in terms of their passing. They're number 8 in the league in terms of rushing the ball, and scoring their 5th at 27 points a game. So Tampa has some things going for them. Most importantly, it's the confidence in their locker room. They've won the division the last 4 years. I think they are in the driver's seat right now. It's up to them to do it. And their confidence level has to be much higher, especially after last week's win. So Las Vegas at 2-10, who knows how they're going to play. They played the Chiefs as tough as they possibly could, and they missed a field goal there at the very end. The Chiefs have had that a little bit this year on more than one occasion. But the 2-10 eliminated Las Vegas Raiders go to Tampa to take on the Bucs. The next game that we're going to look at is on CBS. It's at 4:05. It'll take place in Arizona. You've got an NFC West matchup where the 7-5 Seattle Seahawks end up playing the 6-6 Arizona Cardinals. I don't know what team you're going to get. We'll start with you, Logan. When Arizona plays, are they the one that's going to be really good and you can't beat them? Or is it the team that just shoots himself in the foot and there's no way they're going to win this game?
I mean, you would hope that they would improve on their performance. This is a team on a 2-game losing streak, and one of those teams, of course, is the Seattle Seahawks. They lost on November 23rd to this team. They only put up 6 points. So you hope that if you're a team, if you're in that locker room, you say, okay, let's go back, let's look at the film and say, what can we do differently this time? Because, look, this is your division opponent. This is a team who you're fighting with for first place. So they are going to know you inside and out. If you are Arizona, you have to get something going offensively. You have to put points on the board. They lost to Minnesota last week, 23-22 in a heartbreaker. But before this 2-game skid they're on, they were able to consistently put up points, 31 points, 29, 28. So you have to be able to get that offense back and rolling. That starts, of course, with Kyler Murray, your quarterback, the guy you signed all that money to not too long ago. On the year, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, been sacked 21 times. You got to hope that he can get it going against this Seahawks team. James Conner, I think, has been better this season for sure. 700-plus yards on the ground for that man. 5 touchdowns, and I believe just signed a contract extension with them not too long ago. So he'll be helping them out for a couple more years. Then receiving game, obviously, look, when you think of Arizona, you think Marvin Harrison Jr. That should be your top receiver, but when you look at the numbers, and the numbers don't lie, Trey McBride is actually your top receiver right now. 92 targets, 73 catches, 781 yards, not even a touchdown for him. Harrison does have 7 touchdowns, but see if you can get the young man from Ohio State that you picked 4th in the draft. See what you can do with him and see if he can cook against Seattle. Now, talking about these Seahawks, first place in the NFC West, 7-5. So like you said, Harper, this division is still up for grabs. This is still a very tight race here. Geno Smith, your quarterback. And if you look at Geno, he is just chucking the ball. 3,241 yards? Never would have thought I'd seen that from Geno. He's doing great, though. But when you look at this, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, you got to keep it clean. You can't be throwing picks willy-nilly or else it's going to be a rough day out there in Seattle. And also, 40 sacks on the year. If you're the O-line for Seattle, you have to protect your QB if you want any chance of winning this ball game and defeating these Arizona Cardinals. Of course, we know they're a talented receiving core with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba by way of Ohio State. Those 3 have been really good this year, and that's why Geno's been chucking the ball like crazy because you got really good receivers on the outside there. So if you're Seattle, just keep your quarterback upright so he can give it to those talented players. Also hand it off to Kenneth Walker, who Vincent, where is he from? Where's Kenneth Walker?
901.
There we go. And we'll see what Seattle can do. But I think it's going to be a good game. But I'll go with Arizona getting the win of this one. That way they can get their loss back from a couple weeks ago.
Man, you're looking at 2 teams right now that we didn't really expect. I didn't expect that we'd be talking about them challenging for the NFC West title. I thought Frisco would run away with that division. But I'm going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, last week, you cost the Cardinals that game. You threw 2 critical picks. And a team that runs 76 offensive plays should not lose any football game. Marvin Harrison, maybe Logan, you might be a little bit too tough on him, but when you look at it, I still like his numbers, though. 41 receptions, 606 yards. He averaged almost 15 yards a reception. How many touchdowns you say he got? He got 7.
He got 7.
It's a lot of people ain't got them type of numbers in the league right now, bro.
That's
and
true.
Then look at that, and I like what you said about James Conner. One of the most underrated running backs in the game. So it's been proven. Kyler Murray, if you protect the ball on Sunday, Arizona has a good chance of winning a lot of football games. Now to the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith has played very well since he's been in Seattle. I did not see that coming. Kudos to you, Geno. DK Metcalf is back from injuries. That'll make him a better offensive team. Kenneth Walker's providing them. Let me back up because some of his people reached out to me. Kenneth Walker III has played pretty well this season as far as the running game. So this is a Seahawks team that's played real well. But I think what we need to do when the Hawks are flying out there in Seattle, we need to give Mike McDonald, the rookie head coach, maybe rookie of the year. Because I didn't see Seattle going 7-5. To you, Mr. Harper LeBel.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy. Seattle has struggled running the ball. They're 28th in the league. They're just a little above where the Raiders are at 88 yards a game. But they're 2nd in the league in passing, and that's with Geno. And you mentioned something, Logan, about him being sacked 40 times. Only Caleb Williams has more sacks, and we'll talk about him next. But Arizona, they're 6th in rushing. They're 22nd in passing, so there's a big differential right there. But they average 22 points a game, and they give up 21. Guess what? That's why they're 6-6. They've kind of struggled a little bit this year. I don't know if Kyler Murray's had a great year or just an average year for what we expect out of him. But it'll be an interesting game. 6-6 Arizona. host this one at State Farm there in the Phoenix area in Arizona. Next game that we're going to look at 4:25 Eastern, this game on Sunday, it'll be on Fox. The Chicago Bears head to San Francisco, the 5-7 49ers. I think they've thawed out from that snow game that they had in Buffalo. I certainly hope so. They play a late game, and then they lose the whole day pretty much because of travel and all the things that are associated with that. And not only did they lose the game, not only did they lose a bunch of time, but guys, they lost both of their running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Christian McCaffrey is out, and Jordan Mason is a high ankle sprain, and he will not play this week. They already know that, and it might be even longer. How do you tell Kyle Shanahan that it's going to be okay? Vincent, we'll start with you.
It's a rough time in Frisco right now. But Harper, you played the game for 11 years. It goes personally, one season is not going to work out. And you look at the 49ers, they've had a lot of distractions, man, starting with the Brandon Ayuk contract, Ricky Pearsall getting shot. I can't think of the DB that lost his child this year, and then Trent Williams losing his child last week. I got to take my hats off to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch just keeping the team together. Then with the injuries you just mentioned, Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey going on IR, Christian McCaffrey out for the year. And there's so many things that's been sucking around that football team. The only bright spot, the man from the University of Tennessee, Juwan Jennings, has played pretty well. So this is a team, and also, Brock Purdy has missed some time. Mm-hmm. So this is a team that right now, we don't know what he had, but they've had a lot of serious issues that affect their football team. And Harper, you'll know a little bit more about that because you played and you was inside the locker room. So you'll know what's going on out there in Frisco. Not to my Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams. He's played pretty good since they've made Thomas Brown the offensive coordinator and the head coach. Thomas Brown, where is he from? Decatur, Georgia, by way of Tucker High School, the University of Georgia. Saw the young man playing high school and very happy for him. But it's been proven. This is for you. You know who I'm talking to. I'm looking in the camera because you spy on us every week. You're over there in Key West, Florida. I'm not going to give you sight. Remember you said Caleb Williams was an epic bust? But I'm going to let Harper or Logan give his stats for this year. I know it's the most passing yards in Chicago Bear history. But I noticed you haven't said anything about him in the last couple of weeks. And to all you Caleb Williams doubters. And matter of fact, I saw something on social media when Chicago they had put up something. We sure glad that we kept Caleb Williams at the quarterback than Justin Fields. And that same person said, I don't think so. But I got a real phonetic memory. Also to you, Logan, you know I love you. But on draft night, you weren't too high on Caleb Williams, right?
I'm just saying I'm saying the fact that I would have picked Jaden Daniels number one. That's what I said.
You passed it on to Jay, who I love down there in Texas. But at the end of the day, he's proven if you get quality coaching and you get a system, he can do what he do. Now I want to ask NFL guy, Superman, Mr. Harper LeBel. Tell me what is going on in Chicago. The head coach, he loses a game with a field goal is blocked. Then last week against Detroit, he mismanaged the clock, then they have to fire him. I'm just asking from a fan standpoint, was it that bad in the locker room? How is there so much of a disconnected head coach with the players? Explain that to me, Harper.
Yeah, when you can't protect your quarterback, a lot of things that may not be happening in front of you that are happening behind, they get magnified. And so I'm thinking that the mismanagement of the clock made it very easy for them to fire the coach and move on. They were probably thinking of doing it anyways. You know, they wouldn't have done it in the middle of the season had they not had it on the plate. So whether it be the owner, the general manager, the personnel directors, they all got together without the head coach to go, what are we going to do here? We had this game in the bag. 4 of their last 6 losses have been within 1 score and within just a couple of points. So a silly little mismanagement of the clock or not calling a timeout or not telling the guys to spike it, that in and of itself is excusable. I don't think you fire a guy because of that. So there had to be more to it, and we don't know all of that. But there was probably one more straw that was on the camel's back that made it easy for them to let him go.
Well, before we go to Logan, excuse me, Logan, could it have been the head coach and the GM had a disconnect there? A serious disconnect? I'm just asking.
Yeah, the GM is the one that usually has the authority. He's the higher in the food chain, closer to the owner. And again, for them to fire him without really having the meeting, or maybe they've already had that meeting and he had one more chance and then they blew it there last Sunday. Again, some of the particulars I'm not involved close enough to where I know for sure. So it would be mostly rumor and speculation, but you would tend to think that if you're going to fire a guy in the middle of the season, especially during a 5-game losing streak, it's easy to do that and just blame it on the coach and then just try to move on and salvage the season and get as many wins as you can during the last 4 or 5 games that you have remaining.
Caleb Williams, epic bust? I don't think so. To you, Mr. Logan.
I will. I'll use the. Here. I'll go to Sesame Street. We'll go with the count. We'll go with number 1. All right. Hear me out here, guys. The number is going to be number 1. Number 1 overall draft pick, Caleb Williams. Correct. Number 1 also, most sacks allowed, Caleb Williams, 49 on the season.
I understand.
Also number 1, for the first time in Chicago Bears franchise history, they fired their head coach midseason. Matt Eberflus is gone. And the very first game for Mr. Thomas Brown. Best of luck to him. So with that being said, Chicago, like you said, they're right there. They're not getting beat by 20 points. They're not barely putting points up on the board. They're losing, like you said, Harper, 1-possession games. Where if something would have done differently, whether it be time management, whether it been you should have thrown the ball instead of passed the ball, or vice versa, they could have easily looked a lot better than their record indicates. Yes, they are on the season 4-8, but they could very easily be a lot better than that had some other things gone their way. So Chicago, Caleb Williams, 2,600 yards plus on the year, really solid. 14 touchdowns, love to see it. Only 5 picks, that's great. If he can keep that up, all the negativity, Vincent, all the doubts, they'll start to slowly fade away. And we'll say, all right, Caleb Williams, you're doing a really good job at quarterback. Also, 61% completion percentage in the NFL. DeAndre Swift, I feel like he doesn't get a whole lot of love over there in Chicago like he did out there in Detroit. 700 yards on the ground for him, 5 touchdowns. He's holding it down. And when I look at San Francisco, I'll go and flip over to them. It's just been a rough year. I mean, before the preseason even started, this team has just been one thing after another. Like I said, a lot of off-the-field stuff going on with this team. Now we're seeing on-the-field injuries, and they're having to elevate guys from their practice squad just so they can get a running back. Their 2 running backs for this game is going to be Isaac Guriendo, who's got 42 carries for only 246 yards on the year, and they elevated Patrick Taylor Jr. from the practice squad, who's only gotten, what does he have? He's got 8 games played on the year with only 7 carries. So if your name on the San Francisco 49ers is Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel Jr., Brandon Ayuk, and Ricky Pearsall, get ready, boys. It's going to be a lot of passes thrown your way this upcoming Sunday because if I am San Francisco, if I'm Brock Purdy, just start throwing it to them, see what they can do. Because the running game, it's just not proven. Like I said, your top 2 running backs are out. And you have to throw some running plays in there. You can't be, just one play and that's it. But I mean, if I'm Chicago, I am just prepared for a lot of passes to be during this game. So it's going to be an interesting ball game. We know Chicago is on a losing streak also. This is the best way to snap it right now. Get a little bit of confidence back in your room and also help out your first-time head coach, pick up his first win. I'll go with the Bears getting back on track in this one.
Well, you mentioned a bunch of great names there from an offensive perspective, we're not including Jordan Mason or McCartney, but are you prepared to call out the name Isaac Guriendo, the rookie running back who's going to be taking over? Because he's your guy. It's next man up. They've got to sign somebody. We don't know what kind of shape anybody else is going to be in the practice squad, but that's what you're going to do. They were gashing in the middle of the field trying to get extra yards in that game against Buffalo. I was very excited, if I'm a 49er fan, about the ability to run until Christian goes down in the third quarter, and then you lose Mason as well. So their offensive line is still good. They're 9th in the league in passing. They're 7th in the league in rushing. You would think that they'd be way up in scoring, but the last couple of weeks, obviously, they haven't been able to put up as many points when you have 7 losses. They were in the top 10. Now they're 16th, and it's really a defensive thing. They played well in that first and second series, but next thing you know, the Bills just took them over. The defense gives up 24 points a game. San Francisco's, even though they're in trouble, if they win this game, and they're 6-7 after beating Chicago, and if Arizona ends up beating Seattle, they're just one game out. Think about that. As bad as things are for San Francisco, they're only one game out if they win and Arizona wins next week. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But, you want to give hope to the 49ers, as good as they've been for such a long period of time. But, I personally, like you, Logan, I don't see it. I think Chicago goes in and they steal a road win. One other road win that the LA Chargers would like to be a part of is their game later in the evening on Sunday against the 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chargers come here to Atlanta. They get a road win last week. They'd certainly like to do it again. 8:25 start. Logan, we'll start with you. What do the Chargers need to do? Their defense is fantastic. What do they need to do to stop the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, if you can just duplicate what you did against the Atlanta Falcons against this Chiefs offense, it's a recipe for success. I mean, they got 4 interceptions against Kirk Cousins last week. Obviously, if Mahomes, he's had a bit of a down year overall, which is kind of strange to say, but it happens to everyone, right? When you look at Mahomes on the year and in terms of his stats, the yards are there, 2,979, 19 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions as well as 32 sacks, which is not characteristic of what we've seen over the years from Patrick. Bit of a down year, but he's still getting the ball out there like none other. So you have to get pressure on him. We've seen that the KC O-line, they are vulnerable to giving up sacks this season. So LA, they're going to go heavy with blitz, and they're also going to have some hawks out there on the corners and out there in the safeties, getting ready to pick off any ball that comes their way. So I think defensively, they're prepped for that. And for offense, we know it's going to be Justin Herbert. This is a big test for Justin, I think. If you can beat Patrick Mahomes, if you can go up there and say, look, this is the top dog right now in football. I know there's Lamar Jackson, there's Josh Allen, there's Joe Burrow, all that and so forth. But Patrick Mahomes right now, everyone has him as the current superstar and potentially the next GOAT if things go the way that they've been going here lately. So if Justin Herbert, everyone says, look, he's a young guy, right? He's been in the league for a couple seasons now. He's had some good plays, had some good seasons. But can you beat the top dog out there in the AFC West? Can you show us that the Chargers are legit this year? A team that they're surprising me. I thought LA wouldn't even be contending for first place. I thought that they would be behind Vegas, truth be told. But credit to Harbaugh, credit to the coaching staff, and to the play of LA this year. They've done really well. J.K. Dobbins, when he's healthy, he's done really well. Ladd McConkey, Georgia boy out there, he's doing great out there in LA, looking great. So I think Los Angeles, they've got something to prove, guys, that they're right there. Like I said, KC's 11-1. LA comes into this game at 8-4. So if you can win this game against the division rival and against the top team in the AFC West, that could spell some success for the rest of the season for LA. They've looked really good here as of late. And so I think that they could continue that and beat the Chiefs, who, like you said, against the Raiders last week, they got some of that Taylor Swift magic or something, and that's why that's how they got the win. I think last week they got lucky with some calls, but I mean at the end there with the Raiders and just mishaps. But hey, you take the wins any way you can get them in the NFL. But I think LA's got something to prove this game.
Whoa! Ric Flair had a saying: To beat a man, you got to beat the man.
That's the truth.
Jim Harbaugh, like him or not, man, you got to love him as a head coach. They had the Chargers 8-4. And think about this. The previous regime, they had Justin Herbert throwing the ball all over the place. Harbaugh just came in with that Michigan philosophy and said, hey, you're not going to throw the ball a lot. We're going to play balanced football. We're going to throw. We're going to run. You brought up a good point, Logan. Lad McConkey. I did not see that coming with him. Along with his teammate, formerly at Georgia, they've been the two most surprised football players this year in the National Football League. The Chargers defense. Khalil Mack is playing in his 30s, but he's playing like he's 22 years old. Derwin James, Florida State, is playing at a high level. Cam Hart, the rookie out of Notre Dame, Touchdown Jesus, is playing at a high level. But I want y'all to think about this point, Logan and Harper.
Okay.
Think about if Harbaugh would have took the Atlanta job. What would we be talking about now if he's the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons? I believe he did come in for an interview, if I'm right, correct?
I believe you're right.
Okay.
He did. Yep.
Over with the Chiefs. They haven't played good football all year. To be 11-1, it's amazing. It finally caught up to them a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo. But when you look at it, they've been there before. It's no panic in Kansas City. They still got the Texas Tech man, guns up, the Red Raider Patrick Mahomes. They brought Isaiah Pacheco back. They still got Kareem Hunt. The receiving corps has took a lot of criticism. DeAndre Hopkins has helped him out a little bit since he's been over, along with Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce. But one thing, even though the Chiefs' offense has been struggling, they have a defense, a championship-level defense. Chris Jones, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, Brian Cook, Trent McDuffie, all Pro Bowl players. So it's a statement game to me for the Chargers, but it's not really a big win for me. It's both teams is playing really to see where they at going into the playoffs, because both teams are going to be in the playoffs. But back to my man Jim Harbaugh, like him or not, I got a lot of love and respect for him. The guy's won at every level. Where San Diego, Stanford, the 49ers, he comes back. He tells y'all he going to win the national championship at his school, Michigan. Now he's with the Chargers. In 1 year, they're 8-4 and really didn't change the offensive philosophy. That's coaching. That's coaching. To you, Hop.
Yeah, they picked 5th in the draft.
Yeah.
Number 5 overall, and now they're a playoff contender. It's real
point.
simple to see that there is a formula that he brought in with him, and one of them was playing defense, and they've certainly done that. They're number 1 in the league right now. They've supplanted his brother. The Ravens were number 1 earlier in the league, and even the Chiefs, as good as they are in defense, they're not number 1. The Chiefs are, what are they, 6? They give up 19 points a game, and the Chargers are at 15. And if you don't think they play defense, ask the Atlanta Falcons. They found out last week.
Yes, they did.
36 sacks, 13 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. You know, in a team that we know that they can throw the ball. And by the way, Lad McConkey is questionable. He hurt his knee in the game last week, and they're not sure how much he's going to practice. But, you know, everybody has injuries. Talk to Kansas City about injuries. They've gone through 2 kickers. They have 2 kickers that have been on IR. So it's been rough on everybody. But how you get through it, we'll find out. But that'll be a great matchup. And as bad as they have looked, or as average they have looked, they're still 11-1. Kansas City just finds a way to win, and they go with it, and it works for them. It's amazing. How they've done it with Andy Reid is amazing. But Harbaugh and Andy Reid, well, we'll get to watch that on Sunday. And again, that game starts at 8:25. It'll be on NBC. So those are our 5 games, folks. We have 5 NFL games that we featured this week, and we are glad that you tuned into the show and wanted to be a part of it. The Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions at the top of the list, and the LA Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs at the bottom, and in between there's some great football. So for Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, and for our founding father, Vincent Turner, we want to say thank you for tuning in to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, the NFL edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a fantastic day, everybody.